There's something eerie about the way silence can scream louder than words. For years on Sister Wives, one woman managed to stay mostly out of the direct line of fire, rarely yelling, rarely taking public sides. But when Robin Brown did speak, it wasn't just her voice that carried weight, it was her tears, always the tears. And we were meant to believe they were signs of a tender heart, someone caught in the storm, not the one stirring it. But what if those tears were something else entirely? Hi, friends, I'm Olivia, and welcome back to TLC's Sister Wives Secrets. If you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of the truth. We pull straight from the episodes. And I want to hear from you. Do you think Robin's tears were always genuine? Or do you believe there was something more behind them? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Now let's talk about what really started to crack the surface of that carefully crafted image. It wasn't a dramatic fight or some sudden betrayal. It was money. Quiet, creeping, devastating money problems. When the family began struggling to sell their Vegas homes and tension rose over how to manage finances, Robin's composure broke. And what came out of that moment? It wasn't fragility. It was fire. Not the soft-spoken, misunderstood wife, but a woman backed into a corner, fiercely guarding her access to control through Cody, through money, through manipulation. And that moment changed everything. When Robin first entered the Brown family, it felt like a shift in the wind. She wasn't just a new wife. She was different. Soft-spoken, emotional, and constantly overwhelmed with tears. While the other wives were busy juggling kids, homes, and survival in plural marriage, Robin's presence almost seemed too delicate for the chaos. From the start, the show presented her as someone grateful to be there. She cried when she got engaged. She cried when she joined the family. She cried when the other wives didn't instantly accept her with open arms. But what didn't get said out loud, at least not in the early seasons, was how those tears shaped every relationship around her, especially with Cody. What looked like vulnerability on screen was, in reality, her strongest tool. She rarely raised her voice. She didn't have to. The tears did the talking. And for Cody, it worked like a charm. He responded every time with sympathy, with protection, with defense. He'd rush to reassure her, to fix whatever had upset her, often at the expense of the other wives. That imbalance started early, and it never really stopped. It was subtle at first. Robin needed more time, more attention, more understanding. But over time, it became clear. Robin wasn't just crying because she was hurt. She was crying because it gave her leverage. And this is where the power dynamic really took root. While Christine, Janelle, and Mary had spent years working within the system of give and take, Robin skipped the hard parts. She positioned herself as the emotional center of Cody's world. Her needs always seemed more urgent, her disappointments more devastating. And slowly, the family started bending around that. Cody wasn't just her husband. He became her protector, her shield, even when it meant sidelining everyone else. What we saw on TV was a woman who seemed constantly overwhelmed. But if you were really watching, the pattern was already there. Every tear bought her more space, more power, and more control over a husband who clearly couldn't say no. And while the rest of the wives had to speak up, Robin just had to cry. And Cody would listen. Every time. Once Robin had Cody emotionally hooked, the next layer of control slowly came into focus. Money. In a family where everything was supposed to be shared, where finances were pooled and decisions made collectively, something began to feel off. Behind the curtain of those constant tears, there was a pattern building. And it wasn't just emotional manipulation anymore. It was financial. Quiet at first, but over time, it got loud. Just not in words, in dollars. From the beginning, the Browns shared resources. One big pot. The wives worked, money went in, expenses came out, and they managed as a team. But when Robin joined, she didn't just become part of the system. She started draining it. And this isn't just hearsay. We're talking about what was shown in the episodes. Her kids needed more. Her house needed more. Everything always seemed to orbit around Robin needing just a bit extra. And Cody, well, he always made sure she got it. And then it got extreme. At one point, it came out that Robin had spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. Yes, actual numbers, on things like doll clothes. Not for her daughters to play with, for collectible American Girl dolls. That's not a family necessity. That's not groceries or mortgage payments. That's someone trying to fill a hole with shopping. And while the other wives were pinching pennies, budgeting, trying to build homes at Coyote Pass, Robin's money habits were blowing through the family account like it was her personal bank. What's wild is how protected she was. Cody didn't just allow it, he defended it. Anytime money came up, and especially when the wives started asking questions, he'd shut them down. Or worse, he'd reroute the heat onto someone else, often Janelle. She became the messenger for hard truths Cody didn't want to deliver himself. Because facing Robin meant facing her anger, or her heartbreak, or both. And Cody? He wasn't ready to deal with either. And when Robin was confronted about the spending, what did she do? She flipped. Gone was the quiet sadness. In its place was rage, anger, accusations. She'd spin it as being targeted, misunderstood, mistreated. And every time that happened, Cody would back off. Because for all the wives, money was always a shared concern. For Robin, it was something else entirely, access. And if that access was threatened, even slightly, she went to war. Not with fists, but with guilt, with shame, with silence that made everyone else look like the aggressor. The tears that once seemed so gentle started to look more like weapons. And in Cody's eyes, Robin couldn't be the problem. So the rest of the family started paying the price. Literally. So let's go back to one of the biggest turning points in the entire family. When the Browns packed up their lives in Las Vegas and moved to Flagstaff. On the surface, it was supposed to be a fresh start. A dream. Open land, fresh air, a big property to build all their homes together. But underneath all that optimism, the move exposed the cracks. And nothing made those cracks more obvious than the chaos over selling the Vegas houses. Janelle, always the practical one, stepped up to handle the listings. She'd gotten her real estate license and took it upon herself to try to sell the family's 4 homes. She was driving back and forth on weekends, doing open houses, juggling everything. But let's be real. Janelle wasn't a full-time real estate agent. Her heart was in it, but the results weren't coming fast enough. Homes were sitting on the market. Weeks turned into months, and they were all bleeding money with each passing day. Christine, who also had some real estate background, started seeing the writing on the wall. She knew how the system worked. More importantly, she knew how not to get screwed. When it came time for her to buy her Flagstaff home, she made sure to put everything in her name: title, mortgage, all of it. That meant when the time came for her to leave Cody, she didn't have to fight him for the sale money. She knew the law, and she protected herself. But while Janelle and Christine were doing the emotional and legal heavy lifting, Robin, she wasn't helping. In fact, when Janelle proposed a $40,000 price drop to get the houses moving, Robin lost it. And I mean lost it. The tears were gone. This wasn't the soft-spoken Robin the show loved to frame in slow motion with sad music. This was a woman in full meltdown. She yelled, accused, twisted the story. She said Cody had never wanted that. She said Janelle was pushing an idea that hadn't even been discussed. Her voice shook with fury. And Cody? He just sat there. And this is where it gets really revealing. Turns out Cody had been wanting to drop the prices. He just didn't want to be the one to tell Robin. Why? Because he knew exactly what she'd do. Instead, he let Janelle take the fall. Again. Robin's reaction wasn't just about losing some money. It was about losing control. A lower sale meant less profit. Less profit meant less access to the shared funds. And to Robin, that wasn't just an inconvenience. That was a threat. When you look at how Robin acted during that scene, it was like her entire world was falling apart over a hypothetical $40,000 drop on houses that had already sat for months with no bites. The market was cold. January is a terrible time to sell. Every logical sign said the prices needed to come down, but logic didn't matter to Robin. Money wasn't about logic. It was about power, about comfort, about control. And Cody knew it. That's why he avoided her reaction at all costs. Because anytime finances came up, it wasn't just a discussion, it was a landmine. Robin didn't want a family decision. She wanted her way every time. And when she didn't get it, the calm mask dropped. And what came out was rage, panic, and pressure. The same pressure Cody always gave into. If there's one thing that became impossible to ignore as the seasons went on, it's that Robin didn't just take control, Cody handed it to her. Over and over again. He wasn't dragged, he wasn't fooled, he was an enabler. And the cost of that enablement? The slow disintegration of every other relationship in the family. What we saw repeatedly was Cody avoiding conflict with Robin at all costs. He didn't want to deliver bad news to her, he didn't want to set boundaries, and he definitely didn't want to confront her about money. So what did he do instead? He used the other wives, mostly Janelle. She became his human shield. Anytime there was an uncomfortable truth, like cutting the prices on the Vegas homes, he made it seem like it was her idea. He stood by while she took the hits, while Robin exploded in frustration, knowing full well he was the one pushing that outcome behind the scenes. Think about that for a second. The family's financial future was on the line. These homes had to sell, but instead of stepping up, Cody ducked, letting Janelle carry the blame, watching as Robin snapped and pretending like he didn't know what was going on. That's not just passive, that's destructive. He let Robin believe she was being attacked so he could escape the consequences of telling her the truth. But it didn't stop there. Behind closed doors, things were reportedly even more intense. During one major argument about Robin's spending, when her access to the family's shared finances was questioned, she didn't deny it. She didn't apologize. She threatened. She reportedly told Cody, "If you're going to be like that about money, then go be with your other wives." Let that sink in. It wasn't, "Let's talk about it." It wasn't, "I'll try to do better." It was a threat, a calculated ultimatum. And Cody, as always, caved. Because Robin knew exactly how to push him. If anger didn't work, she cried. If tears didn't work, she got angry. It was always one or the other. And it always left Cody scrambling to keep her calm. He let that behavior go unchecked for years. And in doing so, he pushed the other wives further and further away. Because when you watch those old episodes now, knowing everything we know, you start to see a pattern. Robin controlled the emotional thermostat of the entire family. If she was upset, everything stopped. If she cried, Cody's world shifted. He stopped listening to anyone else. It was Robin, Robin, Robin. And over time, the other wives got tired. They stopped fighting. They saw the writing on the wall. Because when someone has that much control, not just emotionally, but financially, everyone else starts to feel like they're just surviving in someone else's kingdom. Cody didn't just lose his marriages, he gave them away, one choice at a time. By the time the cracks in the Brown family turned into complete collapse, it wasn't just about who was married to whom. It was about years of trust eroded, emotional exhaustion, and a power imbalance that tipped everything toward Robin. Her quiet manipulation, hidden beneath soft words and tear-streaked cheeks, had carved deep divides. And whether it was intentional or not, the outcome was the same. One woman holding the strings while everyone else untangled from the chaos just to breathe again. Robin's spending habits weren't just excessive, they were alarming. Viewers watched her talk about sacrifice, about doing what was best for the family, while behind the scenes she was allegedly spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on American Girl dolls, on doll clothes, on items that had no clear value to the greater good. While Janelle and Christine were budgeting, planning, and trying to build futures for their children, Robin had access to a seemingly endless stream of the family's money, and no one was allowed to question it without triggering a meltdown. What viewers saw was the edited, TV-friendly version of that power dynamic. A weeping wife, a supportive husband, a family trying to make it work. But what they missed was the emotional toll, the private conversations, the silenced voices, the moments where Christine saw it all clearly and knew if she didn't protect herself, no one would. She made the smartest move of all. She got her house in her own name. She handled the title, the mortgage, the financial freedom. And then she left. With her dignity, her independence, and her truth. Janelle tried to keep it together, but you could see it. She was boxed out, emotionally cut off, financially excluded. She was left trying to reason with people who had stopped listening long ago. And Mary? She was just a ghost in her own story, hanging onto scraps while the narrative marched on without her. Robin wasn't just Cody's wife. She became the gatekeeper, the wall, the barrier between him and the rest of the family. And Cody let it happen. Whether out of fear, guilt, or just plain weakness, he let Robin's emotions dictate the health of the entire family. And when it all came crashing down, he still clung to her as if nothing had ever been wrong. So now, I have to ask, did Robin ever really want the family to work? Or did she just want her part of it to thrive while the rest withered away? What do you think, friends? Was this manipulation from day one? Or did power just slowly twist what was once good? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. At the end of the day, this story wasn't just about one woman's spending habits or a few emotional outbursts. It was about how one person's control, wrapped in soft words and wet cheeks, reshaped an entire family. Robin's tears, her tantrums, and her tight grip on Cody weren't just side effects of stress. They were patterns. Patterns that kept the other wives powerless, kept the money flowing in one direction, and slowly choked the unity out of the Brown family. Everything we talked about today, the price drop fights, the doll buying addiction, the Vegas move, the emotional breakdowns, they weren't rumors. They're not fan theories. These were real moments broadcast for the world to see on Sister Wives. All we're doing is connecting the dots, and those dots tell a story many fans are finally ready to acknowledge. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you think Robin knew exactly what she was doing? Or was this just a woman trying to survive in a chaotic family system? Comment below. I'm genuinely curious what you think. If you found this video helpful, honest, or eye-opening, make sure to subscribe to TLC's Sister Wives Secrets right now. Like, share, and send this to another fan who's been watching all of this unfold for years. This is Olivia. And something tells me the truth about Robin is only just beginning to come out. Don't miss what's next.